Let's go to the serious issues, because interest rates are really going to bite. They're already biting around this country, and as more and more people come off their fixed loans and run straight into 11 increases, it's going to be really tough. Here's what Jim Chalmers had to say today.
We know, and this interest rate decision today is a reminder of the complex combination of economic pressures that are being felt right around the country. The budget will seek to alleviate some of that pressure.
Yeah, this is fascinating to watch, right? Because I'm old enough to have watched Paul Keating in his prime, Stephen. He was managing the economy. He talked about the levers. He talked about all the other impacts, but it's what he was doing, how he was managing it. Jim Chalmers, who wrote his thesis on Keating, is like a victim. He said, we're just going along in this boat and all this stuff's happening to us. I can't tell you what's going to happen. We're just victims of circumstance.
Well, I think it's the first time in my time following politics, and that's been a while, that I've seen a government that has for 12 months gone about blaming the previous government. But the fact that he hasn't got his hands on the levers, I think, is evidenced by today's decision by the RBA. They clearly don't have any faith that the budget is going to pull any of those levers that the government's got to try and ease the inflationary pressures that Australia's facing at the moment. And that's the reality of it. I mean, from what we're hearing at the moment, we're going to see an increase of the dole for some people, but not for others. We're going to see $120 billion slashed out of infrastructure programs. It just seems to be all over the place, and you can't get a sense of whether this government knows whether it wants to be the profligate spender that is in its DNA, or that it is going to try and cut back on things a little bit. I think it's going to be a net zero-sum game, and the RBA can see that coming.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very political, as budgets tend to be, I suppose. But, Ali, the thing is, I get the sense this is where the rubber's going to hit the road for Labor in this budget next week, because people are feeling pain around the country. We're worried about where the economy's going, and we want to see a plan. We want to see something that actually is a clear and identifiable plan.
Well, we all have to plan. We have to plan, especially now with so many of us coming off our fixed terms and we're faced with this big rise in interest rates. How come if we have to plan and know exactly where we're going within our family budget, the people who are leading us don't seem to know exactly where we're going, and it just seems to be all very up in the air? Don't think that would pass muster when I was looking at the bottom of line of, how much we can afford to spend on our groceries every week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you one thing that's going to make it worse, and a lot of people are worried about, this has come up in a survey today, 60% of Australians worried that our immigration rate is now too high. We've gone from zero to an explosion post-pandemic. I outlined last night how the equivalent to the population of Canberra, where you're sitting, Stephen, is coming into the country in net terms this year, and the equivalent of Newcastle the year after. 700,000 people more than in less than 2 years. And Dick Smith's pretty worried about it. Here he is.
Not even the Green Party has a population plan. No one's going to talk about it, because what they say is, if you talk about population, you've got to talk about immigration. And if you're against immigration, that must mean you're racist.
Yeah, this is the thing. People don't like talking about population debates, Ali, because people would say you're sort of xenophobic and the like. But as you know, so many people are facing rent problems and housing problems across this country. How does that improve when you bring in an extra 700,000 people?
Well, it only improves when you do cut through red tape, where you get going and you get building. Now, we need people coming in too, to some extent, because we need skilled migration. But if they're also going to put pressure in those infrastructure gaps, well, we need to make sure that the people who can help us with that are the ones that are welcome first and foremost, and all that building red tape gets thrown into the bin.
Yeah, look, I think absolutely we need the skills filled. We need immigration. 700,000 in less than 2 years seems way too much, Stephen. And interestingly, a lot of that is driven by the university sector. So if you can get into a course, you can get into the country, and then usually you go off and get a job and stay here. It seems to, I think it was Nick Cater writing today, said, John Howard once said, we control who comes to this country and the manner in which they come. Nick Cater said, now it's the unis who are basically deciding our immigration intake, and it's not a bad point.
Well, you reap what you sow. I mean, for years we told people if you don't go to university, you're an idiot. So we discourage people from doing trades. Then we end up with a skills shortage from a trades perspective. We've now got skills shortages because we haven't planned our university education courses properly. We've got low completion rates at our universities. We're bringing all these people in to fill a skills shortage that we should have managed 10, 20, 30 years ago. But on the same time, as I said before, we're going to slash $120 billion from infrastructure projects. where are these people going to live? How are they going to be serviced? I mean, I got no problem with immigration, and I don't particularly have a problem with a big Australia policy if that's where we go. But you've got to prepare for it, and we are not prepared for this influx.